Think about the moment you first fell in love, or the worst argument you ever had with someone close to you. You can probably picture it right now. The room, the words, the feeling in your chest. It feels solid. It feels like a recording. But the real answer is far stranger. That memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction. And every single time you remember it, your brain quietly rewrites it. Not on purpose. Without your permission. Without you ever noticing. Most people imagine memory like a filing cabinet. You live an experience. Your brain stores a copy, and later you open the drawer and pull it back out. Unchanged. Simple. Comforting. Completely wrong. Here is what actually happens. When you remember something, your brain does not retrieve a file. It rebuilds the experience from scattered pieces, like reconstructing a shattered vase from fragments scattered across different rooms. And every time you do this rebuilding, the new version gets saved back in place of the old one. The memory you have today is not the memory you had 10 years ago. It is a copy of a copy of a copy, and each copy was made by a slightly different person, in a slightly different mood, with slightly different information available. This is called reconsolidation. The term sounds technical, but the idea is simple. Every act of remembering is also an act of rewriting. Why would evolution build a memory system this unreliable? Wouldn't a perfect recording be more useful for survival? It turns out, no. A perfect recording would be a liability. Picture your ancestors on the savannah tens of thousands of years ago. A memory's job was never to preserve the past accurately. Its job was to help you survive the future. And the future keeps changing. The watering hole that was safe last season might be dangerous this season because predators move, seasons shift, and the herd migrates. A brain that clung rigidly to old information would walk its owner straight into a lion's den. So memory evolved to be flexible instead of accurate. Every time you recalled where the water was, where the danger was, who you could trust, your brain updated that memory with whatever you currently believe to be true. The system wasn't built to protect the past. It was built to keep your model of the world current. This is where the science gets concrete. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Karim Nader ran an experiment that shook the field of memory research. He took rats that had been trained to fear a specific sound, then gave them a drug that blocks protein synthesis right after the rats recalled that fear. The fear vanished. Not because the rats forgot the sound existed, but because the act of recalling the memory had made it vulnerable, like a file temporarily unlocked for editing, and blocking the rewrite process erased what should have been rock solid. Before this, scientists assumed that once a memory was consolidated, it was permanently locked in, like ink drying on paper. Nader's work proved otherwise. Every memory, even old ones, becomes temporarily editable the moment you recall it. Now here's where it gets even stranger. This doesn't just apply to rats and fear responses. It applies to you right now, with your own life story. In the 1990s, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus ran a series of experiments that became famous for a simple, unsettling reason. She showed that you can implant a false memory in someone's mind, using nothing but suggestion. In one version of her research, participants were told stories about their childhood that included a fabricated event, getting lost in a shopping mall as a young child. A notable percentage of participants didn't just believe the false story, they began adding details. The color of the stranger's shirt who helped them, the fear they felt, memories of an event that never happened, experienced with the same emotional weight as memories of events that did. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a memory it built from a real experience and a memory it built from a story, an assumption, or someone else's suggestion. To your brain, a vivid reconstruction feels exactly the same as a faithful one. So what does this mean for that memory you pictured at the start? The first love. The big argument. It means some details are probably wrong. Not because you're forgetful, but because every time you've told that story to a friend, to a partner, to yourself in the shower, your brain has reopened the file and quietly edited it. Maybe the lighting has changed. Maybe the words got sharper or kinder, depending on how you feel about that person now. Maybe an entire detail crept in from a similar memory, merged in, and you'd never know. Here's a question worth sitting with. If your memories shift to match how you currently feel, then in some sense your past isn't fixed behind you. It's being rewritten by your present over and over to match the story you're currently living. This isn't a flaw. Researchers studying memory reconsolidation, including work led by Daniela Schiller at Mount Sinai, have explored how this updating process can actually be therapeutic. If a traumatic memory can be reopened and updated with new emotional context, in a safe environment with new information, it can lose some of its grip. The same mechanism that makes memory unreliable also makes healing possible. A memory that could never change would also be a wound that could never close. Think about what this means for an argument you had years ago with someone you love. Maybe back then it felt like the end of the world. But you've remembered it 100 times since, and each time you knew the relationship survived. Each retelling folded that knowledge back into the memory itself. So the memory you have now isn't really the memory of the argument. It's the memory of the argument, plus everything you've learned since, fused together until you can't separate the two. Is that a distortion? Or is it your brain doing exactly the job it evolved to do, keeping your understanding of your own life current, so the past can actually serve the present? There's a kind of quiet relief in this, if you let yourself feel it. The version of yourself that exists in your oldest memories was never preserved like a museum piece. It was always being gently updated by every version of you that came after. Your childhood self, your teenage self, the person you were 5 years ago. None of them are frozen in amber somewhere in your skull. They're all still being written by you today. So tonight, when you find yourself replaying an old memory, the version of your first love, the version of that argument, the version of the day everything changed, remember this. You're not watching a recording. You're not even remembering in the way you think you are. You're rewriting. Again, right now. And the next time you remember this very moment, the moment you learn that your memories are not fixed, that memory itself will already be slightly different too.